we're under a very, very thick vellum of geoengineering. This has been said in the NASA documents to have reduced sunlight by 20% globally. This is why our trees are dying all over the globe. This is also preparing toxic soil because of the pH change that will only allow for GMO seeds, Monsanto seeds, to grow. We are being poisoned intentionally. This is mass pollution being created. And I can tell you another very, very important document on stopthecrime.net is the Iron Mountain report. This report, we're going by another cell phone tower. We just picked it up on our analyzer. We just heard it. While we can't see it because it's disguised, we hear it. We keep our analyzer on as we're driving so that we can hear how close these cell phone towers are located. But they're disguised as trees, they're disguised as telephone poles with a flag on it. They're even in mobile gas station signs hidden so that you don't even know that they are there. In church steeples, they're even created as yuccas in the desert.
Sources say gunman Aaron Alexis left behind 2 short phrases on the side of the shotgun used in the massacre. One of the messages, scratched into the gun's metal, reads, "Better off this way." The other is more cryptic, "My ELF weapon." Investigators don't know what the etchings mean. ELF might be a reference to extremely low-frequency radio waves used by the Navy to communicate with submarines. It may also, though, relate to a strange incident which happened 6 weeks ago in Newport, Rhode Island. Alexis complained to police that stalkers were using a microwave-type machine to send vibrations into his body. Newport investigators took a report and gave it to local Navy police. It apparently was never passed up the chain of command. After the Newport episode, Alexis sought help at 2 hospitals operated by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Government records show that on August 23rd, Alexis visited a VA emergency room in Providence complaining of insomnia. He received medication to help him sleep. Then 5 days later, on August 28th, he refilled the sleep aid prescription at a VA medical center in Washington. The Department of Veterans Affairs also revealed that Alexis was on partial disability for orthopedic issues and ringing in his ears. He received disability benefits totaling $395 a month. His family has claimed that Alexis had also sought and received treatment for mental health issues, but the VA said it had no record of Alexis receiving that kind of care. In a statement, the VA said he never sought an appointment from a mental health specialist. Now, the FBI still does not have a motive for the shooting, Scott, and investigators say so far they found no clear connections between Alexis and any of his victims.
Creation of money? Well, in the case of the US dollar, it's not the government. This shouldn't be an earth-shattering revelation. The fact that the Federal Reserve is a private institution owned by a cartel of the world's most powerful banks is quickly becoming common knowledge. Even the mainstream media doesn't deny it at this point. However, the full extent of what this means is only clear when you understand how the banking system really works. And unfortunately, this isn't something we're taught in school. Once you have it explained to you in simple terms, you'll understand why. Every dollar in circulation is loaned into existence by a bank. The process begins with the Federal Reserve when they loan out money to the US government and to other entities. You've probably heard this talked about before, especially in regards to the interest rate on those loans, which the Federal Reserve raises and lowers depending on economic conditions. But what's never talked about in the mainstream is the fact that the Fed isn't actually loaning out money that they have. They are merely typing those dollars into existence on a computer. You may be inclined to believe that this money is based on some physical backing like gold, but you would be mistaken. The Federal Reserve hasn't owned any gold since the 1930s.
The Federal Reserve does not own any gold at all. We have not owned gold since 1934. So we have not engaged in any gold swaps.
When the Federal Reserve loans money to the US government gives the Federal Reserve government bonds in exchange. These bonds are simply written promises to pay back the money that was loaned to them with interest through taxation. So to be clear here, the government is taking out a loan from a bank that is creating that money out of thin air, and they're expecting you, the taxpayer, to cover that loan. The absurdity of this arrangement is even more obvious when you realize that up until 1913, the US government created its own money and had no need for a bank to play the part of a middleman. That new money loaned out by the Federal Reserve enters circulation through the banks, accumulates in the banks, and in the end, the banks end up holding all the cards. Not necessarily for the reasons you may imagine. Contrary to popular belief, the majority of money in circulation isn't actually created by the Federal Reserve, but rather by the ordinary banks that businesses and individuals use for their checking, savings, and mortgages. How is this possible? Well, like the Federal Reserve, ordinary banks are allowed to loan out money that they don't have. There are, of course, restrictions. Banks are only allowed to loan out 10 times the amount of money that they actually have. So if Wells Fargo has $1,000, they can loan you $10,000, and they expect you to pay back that $10,000 plus interest. This is called fractional reserve banking. 75% of all money in circulation is created in this manner. Now, as bad as this may seem, this is really only the tip of the iceberg. Most banks structure payment plans so that for many years, you're paying almost nothing but interest, and only start paying down the principal gradually. The result of this strategy is that in most cases, you pay far more in interest when you purchase a house than the house itself is worth. So here's the real question. If all money is created through loans, where does the money come from to pay for the interest? Let's say we reset the system to zero, loan $1,000 into existence, and charge 7% interest. We now have a total of $1,000 in the system, but we owe $1,000 plus interest, and that's more. The interest ensures that there's always more debt than money in circulation, because the money interest doesn't exist.